There are three main problems e-commerce brands experience from 40 to 200K a month. And number one is you find a set of good creatives, right? But every time you try to scale it, ROAS just falls off the cliffs. When you put ad spend in it, it just falls off the cliffs, right? And then number two problem is that you just don't have the right skills, tactics, knowledge, really just to take you to the next step, which is 300K plus a month in D2C revenue, right? And number three is what I call the execution dilemma. Like there's just so many different things that you're hearing people to tell you to try. Videos, you're watching videos on YouTube and you're trying it, but quite frankly, none of it actually works and you just end up spending money, right? And so let me ask you, are you experiencing any one of these problems? And if the answer is yes, there's a reason why you're experiencing these problems. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to explain to you why you're experiencing these problems and how to solve for these problems and essentially take your brand to 300K plus a month in D2C revenue. And you're probably thinking, okay, why should you even listen to me, right? My name is Frank Kinney. I'm the head of growth and CEO at Lion Media. I wasn't born with the knowledge to scale brands to 300K plus a month. These are all things that I've had to learn. I was actually born in Cameroon, which is a third world country in west of Africa, right? By the time that I came to the US, which is in 2005, Facebook ads wasn't even a thing. It wasn't until I got into college to when I launched multiple e-commerce brands, actually 3, and they all failed. All because I didn't know how to have framework, I didn't know how to run Facebook ads, and I just didn't have a right system to scale, right? So all these brands that I launched all actually failed. And so what I did was I went to go work for multiple other agencies, really just to acquire the knowledge that I'm going to be sharing with you. I worked for some of the biggest marketing firms in the US, which you probably heard of some of them, like Hog Media or Common Thread Collective. And these are massive agencies in which they work with brands like Nike, Liquid Death, Sunday Red, and Skull Candy. These were all brands that I was personally managing, which is like millions and millions of dollars a month, right? You could probably see that, okay, managing this amount of money, like you get to learn so much. And the exact framework and strategy that I'm going to share here with you are what these massive brands do, right? So now we're in 2026 and the market has changed, right? There's this massive tech layoff. And when you look at the consumer index in the United States, it's at one of the lowest point that it's ever been. The consumer sentiment index tells you how essentially consumers are feeling about spending capital, right? That's affecting how people are interacting and purchasing your product. In addition to that, ad costs are constantly growing up across Meta, Google, and any platform. They're constantly growing up and competition is growing. And consumers just trust brands less and less. So why is now still the best time to make money in e-commerce? The data doesn't lie. When you look at the e-commerce growth rate, so they're growing at a 14% year over year and will hit $10 trillion by 2027. Companies that are aggressive during this recession see up to triple revenue growth and a 9x profitability versus their peer. And this is according to McKinsey. If you're already making 40 to 200K a month, you're in a perfect position to scale aggressively in 2026. And why is that? Because quite frankly, the market is resetting. Brands are getting wiped out left than right. While you already have a product market fit, and essentially all you need to do is really just pour oil into the fire. And so if you follow the right blueprints, you can really outperform any competitors and make a lot of money in the process. And the strategies that I will be sharing has made a lot of brands millions and millions of dollars. Sharing some of these case studies over here, I'll share with you the revenues, but not the specific brands, because a lot of the brands that we work with, we have NDAs, but I can, however, show you like the revenues, right? So look at this brand. We took them from $40,000 to $175,000 in revenue. So this is the Shopify data for that. And another brand, $106,000 a month from $40,000 a month. And then another brand, $174,000. And you have another brand over here, $363,000 a month, right? And so now just kind of showing you some like Facebook data. So you see this Facebook account, we took it from $18,000 to $93,000 in revenue at a 5.21 return on ad spend. And another one over here, $15,000 in Facebook ad spend, $59,000 in revenue at a 3.89. A lot of the customers and the clients that we work with just love the strategy and it works very well for them. As you can see some of the testimonials that we have gotten from some of our clients. What's the difference between companies who scale to 300K plus a month and the ones who don't? Well, the lie that you've probably heard, that you're probably telling yourself, is that these companies, they just have a lot more creative, right? They have a team that can produce a lot more creative. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth, because the one thing that these brands and these companies understand is that the funnel is the bottleneck, right? So they focus on increasing their conversion rate, their AOV, rather than just focus on decreasing like the CPM, cost per clicks, just things within that scope. And another lie you may have heard is that, these companies or these brands are like first movers advantage, right? They're just like far ahead of the game. But actually you can scale to 300K plus a month starting from zero. And another lie you may have heard is that these companies or these brands just may have like a massive team or a big team. Well, the truth is with AI these days, you can get 100x leverage on just using AI. And so a lot of the brands that we work with have a small team of like 3 to 4 people. What really separates brands doing 300K a month plus from all others, well, the thing is they know how to scale profitably using cold traffic. So essentially they can sell to people who have never heard about the brand before. So when you look at this funnel over here, so this represents your market. So when you look at the bottom of the funnel, which is like 3% of your market, right? And quite frankly, these are the people that you're probably currently advertising to and who your competitors are advertising to, because it's the easiest to convert, because these people already know what they want. They know the solution to their problem and they know what product is going to do that. And you carry that, and so does your competitor also carry that. Quite frankly, just advertising to this 3% of the market is the reason why you can't scale. And so you have to think about, what about the rest of the 97% of the market? The way to think about the rest of the market is when you see the 7% of the market. So this segment of the market is a group that they're aware that they have a problem, right? But they're really just not searching for a solution. And so when you look at the next segment of the market, which makes up 30% of the market, they're not interested or even looking for a solution to their product, right? And so a lot of time they just skip a lot of the ads that they see. And finally, the largest cohort of the market is these people. They don't even think that they need your product, right? So they're not even aware that they have a problem. And this segment of people are the hardest to convert. But that is exactly who you need to be marketing to, because if all your competitors are going after 3% of the market, so that leaves 97% of the market on tap, and you need to be targeting them if you really want to scale aggressively and make a lot of profit from that. And so to sell to the 97% of the market who are not ready to buy, we use an ancient marketing strategy or framework called direct response. Now, if you study marketing, you've seen some of these ads from some of the greatest, like David Ogilvy, right? So looking at the specific ad over here that was written, one of the best actually is, they laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play. And so when you read something like this, regardless of who you are, you're so intrigued and you want to read on what happens, right? And so this then is the perfect opportunity to take that person from completely unaware of a problem, cold traffic, and then educating them by talking about the problem that they're having, the solution to the problem that they're having, essentially to getting them to convert. And so we follow a very strict framework to attract, educate, and convert completely unaware prospects. So we take them from the ad, send them to a pre-sale page, send them to a sales page, and eventually to the checkout. And over the past 6 years, I've spent more than $50 million just testing these frameworks across just the different clients that we've managed and across like the different agencies that I've worked for. And so I call this system Ad Profit. So Ad Profit is a 3-step framework. The first is we develop a code-friendly offer and messaging, then turn that offer into an attention-grabbing ad, and then drive traffic into a structured funnel. And I'll be showing you exactly how to do that, right? So the code-friendly offer. So you have to do the market research, like the value proposition, and then like the pricing, right? So essentially what that means is for the code-friendly offer is essentially going to be an offer that is scalable with cold traffic. And so when doing this, you have to be perceived as an all-in-one solution to a big problem that your market is trying to solve. Part of this process is you have to research their pain point and their desires. Look at an example of a brand in which we executed this is Release. So this is Pip Wellness, which is essentially, it's a product that helps women from 40 to 70 with like menopause, and also women that are struggling with like intimacy with their partner. The first step is just the research, so looking at the tools like Reddit, Quora, online forums, Amazon reviews, and even just ChatGPT, right? And aggregating that and creating a list of pain points that our customers are experiencing in that specific market, right? And we use the exact words that they're using. Can't seem to reconnect with my partner, experiencing pain and dryness in my private part, don't feel like getting intimate with my partner, right? These are all the problems that this market is experiencing, right? So now that we've identified the pain points, we have to create a list of the desires. What did they want, and what language are they using to address what they want? I want to reconnect with my partner again. Feel like it was the first time again. Don't want to feel pain in private part. Want to have fun with my partner frequently, right? So these are all the exact same language that market is using to identify the desire that they want. And so we take that information and then we craft messaging. And so when you look at this is still for the same brand. So reclaim your intimate pleasure with this breakthrough for women over 40. So we essentially just taking the information, our research, and then we've crafted it into a messaging, into a headline that's going to draw people into our pre-sale page. We identify the problem that they're having, right? We educate them on that problem, why they're experiencing that problem, and then what is the solution, the mechanism, and then finally we make them an offer, right? So this is how we take from people who don't even know that they have a problem, completely unaware, cold traffic, take them through that funnel, educate them, and eventually place an offer for them to purchase the product. And so here's just another example of brands that do this very well. So this specific brand they sell a sleeping product essentially, right? It's a sleeping powder. So how a pilot's unexpected discovery is helping thousands achieve the deep sleep they've been so desperately craving. When you read that, you want to find out what that is, right? Regardless of what stages of market that you're in, right? And another one that does this really well is Javi's Coffee. 12 reasons why Javi Coffee Concentrate will upgrade your morning routine in 2026. And so you're just reading that, then they just take you through this framework where they're educating you, and then they present to you the solution to help you with essentially with the problem that you're dealing with. And so the next thing that you have to do is really just optimize your offer for strong unit of economics. So this specific brand, the same brand that we were talking about earlier. So this is how they initially had the offer structured. So they were selling this product for $49.99 at a 30% discount, right? That kills the margin. So look at the outcome of what this will be. So $49.99 with a 30% sale, that's going to be $34.93. And when you think about the COGS, subtracting the COGS from that, and as well as the shipping, that leaves you with $16.93. And so that makes up a 2.063 return on ad spend, right? This destroys the margin for this specific product. They're losing money on every order, so you can't scale something like this, right? And so essentially what we do is like, okay, we take that and then we craft unique offers that's essentially going to make them money when consumers actually purchase the specific product, right? And so one of the ways that we do this is with bundles. We take that core product and then we essentially identify other products that would help people experience the same desire that they're looking for. So essentially reinforcing that. Right, so for example, with Release, was the core product, it's the hero product. We added a mini pure with that, right? To essentially increase the average order value for that specific product, essentially, right? So instead of a consumer paying what was, I think, $49.99 plus a 30% discount, they're paying $69.99 at 30% discount. And so when we look at the unit of economics for that, so $69.99 with a 30% sale is $48.99. And so when you look at the COGS, which is going to be $15, so you take $48.99 minus the COGS, obviously minus shipping, and then that gives you with a $27.99 CPA, which would be a 1.75 return on ad spend. This is an offer that you can scale because now you're making profit. You're making money from each order that is coming through. And then the other offer is you take the $104.99 with a 30% sale, that gives you a $73.49. So you subtract the cost, which would be $18, plus the shipping, which would be $8. That leaves you with $47.49 CPA, right? And so the ROAS on that would be 1.754. So you see how you start to make more and more profit, right? More and more profit from just how you optimize your offer, essentially. You're making a lot more money from each order that comes through. This is something that you can scale. Here are other ways in which we also tested the same product with different offers. So instead of doing a bundle, we just offered more of the same product, right? So we offer, say if they buy one product, they save $6. If they buy two products, they save $18, plus they get a mini pure. A mini pure is just enhances the original product or the hero product. If they buy three, they save $35, and if they buy four, they save $71, right? So the goal is we're pushing them to buy the higher price point product. And so they save money and they get an additional value for that, which is an additional product. So that's the cold offer, right? So we've done that. So then the next step is like creating the ad essentially. When creating the ad, the way that you have to think about this is how do I sell my offer to my specific target group, right? And so we've developed a framework and a system for this as well. The goal of the ad is essentially to grab attention and sell the click into the funnel. Something that we've built and developed is called a concept. So the concept essentially makes up the offer. So think about the offer as just the product and not the specific price. The offer, which is the product, and then the end goal is to why people should purchase this or why people should purchase this. And then you also have the audience is whom essentially going to be purchasing this product, right? So we take that concept and then we've developed 3 ads for that. within those 3 ads, 2 different sizes or 2 different placements that you can place on Facebook and Instagram. So we have the 1x1 and the 9x16. And so here's just an example of what that comes out to be. So for this specific brand, you have the offer, which is a sample kit, right? And then the audience is going to be women between 25 and 34. So millennial women looking for an elevated fragrance that is customizable to their scent preference, right? So high income, lives in a metropolitan area, interested in fashion and fitness, right? And so the angle then that we're using to sell is just the summer scent, right? Because one of the things that they're looking for is elevated fragrance experience that is customizable to their specific scent. So you have to think about like things like pheromone and things, within that scope. So again, the summer scent highlights the benefits of discovering your summer scent through the sample kit. So we take all of this and then we package that into what is 3 separate ads in which we can essentially use to send people to our specific funnel. And so when you look over here, the same concept, but just different ways it's structured for ads, okay? So the next thing, when you look at a brand like Native, right? So they follow the exact same concept and process, right? So the offer, which is a new product launch that they're having, which is the whole body cream, right? And so when you look at the angle in which they're using to sell the product, it's the scent, right? For this specific example, when you look at the copy, discover Native's new whole body cream deodorant, now available in an obnoxiously craveable scent, right? And then you have the headline, which is like, you whole body cream deodorant, right? So they're using that same framework. And then another one, exact same product. And you have to think about like, these are more like branded type of like ads. So the angle that the same product, which is the whole body cream, the angle that they're using is benefits clinically proven, right? So when you look at the copy, Native's new whole body cream deodorant has clinically proven odor protection for pits, privates, and more, right? Now they're just using a different angle to sell the product. Other ways in which you can grab attention and send people to essentially your structured funnel is you have to use like hype and like curiosity. So when you look at the specific ads, this brand has the 5 reasons why this bottle is changing the game. 5 reasons. I want to hear about those 5 reasons. So you click on the ad and then you go to your structured funnel that you've put together. Another one, the viral vitamin. So you see there's multiple ways in which you can capture attention and then send to the funnel because that is whole purpose of the ad. And so we talked about the call to offer, now we talked about the ads. Now the direct response funnel. This is probably going to be one of the most important aspects of this because if you don't get this right, then none of what we just talked about is going to work. And so from a high level overview, so this is what it's going to look like. We talked about the ad, right? The goal of the ad is to get attention and drive that attention to a specific structured funnel, right? And we talked about how to develop that funnel, which is going to be like the pre-sale page, right? And then from that pre-sale page, you have to make sure that the price point is presented in a way that you make money from that, from each order, right? And so again, from the ad to the pre-sale page to the sales page. So the whole purpose of the pre-sale page, when you look at the structure for this is, one, you want to increase like the pain that the customer is always experiencing, right? And then you have to educate and build trust in the same process. And then you have to set the frame for the offer. So let's look at what that looks like. My battle with relentless weight gain had been hopeless until I discovered this. Until you discovered what? Essentially, which would be what they're thinking by. So it then pushes them to like read even more. If you struggle with weight gain before, you know it can creep up on you slowly. But what if it becomes unimaginable or starts affecting blah, 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 right? So again, so the pain and then the desire, you have to adjust what the pain that they're experiencing is and then what is the desire that they essentially want, right? And so the explanation part over here would be, why do some people struggle to lose weight no matter how hard they try? You have to explain the reason why they're experiencing these problems, right? Whether you want to apply some like science to this, like, but you have to explain to them like the reason why they're experiencing this problem. And then the next step, once you've explained the reason, is the mechanism, right? The mechanism is essentially your solution, right? What ways then do you help? Does your product help essentially solve this specific problem, right? And then the next step is going to be the proof. Okay, what people have used your mechanism, your solution to essentially alleviate or to solve this specific problem. And then finally, you have your CTA, which then sends people to then the sales page. Sales page, right? We talked about how to essentially like structure like the sale page, which is going to be like a cold friendly offer, and you have to add urgency and objection handling, and then finally you close. So the mechanism for that is, boom, finally when people have gone through your pre-sale page, right? Finally, then you get the opportunity to essentially present what the offer is, right? So then that's where you have like the sales page. So the sales page is essentially like the product reveal. Here's the big solution, right? Of everything we've been talking about. This is what solves your specific problem, right? Again, how you structure this is very important, right? So boom, first of all, you have what the specific problem is, right? And then you have the price point, the offer, make sure when you're structuring like the price, you're going to be making revenue or making money from it. As we talked about, the price of these ad platforms are constantly going up. So you can't afford to lose money when you're structuring your sales page, right? So you have to offer it, and then finally you have the details, right? And then you also have to show additional proof of customers who've used this specific product, right? And then finally the objection handling, which is included within like the FAQ, right? What could be the essentially like the question that your target market would be asking about this, right? And then you have to answer all of them within your sales page, right? And guys, so that is the structure of what the sales page looks like. Next thing, you have upsell and downsell, right? So essentially what that is, finally somebody has purchased this product. They already obviously paid the credit card information, everything like that. And so the next page after that, right, this is like a bonus. You want to give them an opportunity to essentially purchase something in addition. And so essentially post-purchase upsell needs to be either more of the same product, right? As we have it over here for this example, we have this collagen peptide, right? And so people can just buy more of the same product. Therefore, it's going to further increase the average order value of that customer, right? Or you can sell a different product, but it still helps people achieve their outcome or the result that they want much faster, right? Or another upsell that you can have is just an entirely different product that just solves a completely different problem, right? But I would always advise to go with the first two, which is more of the same product, essentially like another product that solves the same problem, but much faster, right? This is just another way of increasing average order value, because a percentage of people that do purchase that product are going to purchase one of these other products that you offer to them. And guys, just to kind of show you some case study of following this framework, this system that I've been showing you over here. This is some of the results that we've received for some of our clients, right? This is the Meta account. So when we look at this account, they spent $10,000. They got 2.68 return on ad spend. So essentially, which is $28,746, right? Another one that we see over here, they spent $11,845 and got $157,000 in revenue, right? So that's a 13.31 return on ad spend with 385 conversion. Following this system, this framework, it works because essentially what you're doing is you're taking people who are unaware, don't even know that they have a problem, right? And then taking them through this framework, which changes essentially like their decision, right? It changes their psychology to the point where like, yes, this makes sense. This is what I want. And they essentially end up buying from you. You take them from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. By doing it in this specific framework that I showed you guys, it converts cold prospect like crazy, right? And so brands are stuck because they don't have the right marketing system that allows them to scale profitably in today's market, right? As I talked about before, like the market in 2026 has changed. There's so many different factors that are contributing to why people are not purchasing your products, right? And I essentially just kind of walked you guys through the framework or system in which you can essentially get cold prospect people just to buy your product at scale, right? And so having a system is very important, and brands need to implement a growth system that have a strict sequence, like the one that I just showed you guys. And so do you now understand that it is really possible to scale to 300+ K a month in DTC revenue, following this strict framework, following the strict sequence of a system that I just walked you guys through, right? And so I'm gonna make you guys an offer essentially, right? So I just walked you through the systems. I've given you the knowledge. I've given you multiple examples. So you can take this and obviously implement it yourself based upon what you just learned today. Or you can hire our team and essentially we can do this for you at a much faster, and you will save a lot more money than you trying to do it yourself, because we have the knowledge, we have the experience, and we know exactly what to test first, what to look at. So essentially helping you avoid all of these mistakes that we've done in the past, right? So essentially what that will look like is we'll jump on, diagnose essentially where you're at. So we'll see what the problem is over there. Then we'll start to structure and create new ad concepts, right? From there, we look at your funnel to see where the bottleneck is within your funnel. After we identify that bottleneck, we essentially create a pre-sales page, or maybe just kind of optimize your offer to where you're actually making more money or making profit from like your first order. So this is just essentially some of the steps that we take when you book a call with us, right? And so if that's something that you're interested in, click on the link below, and then I'll see you guys on the other side.